Sources are telling our Adam Schefter that Peyton Manning has a torn plantar fascia in his right foot. Some Broncos players said it was difficult for Manning to even walk last week. Stephen A., I hate that I have to ask this. Is Peyton done?
Yes, he is. After this season, not during this season. I think that he'll be back at some point. I think that he'll get himself healthier. He will definitely look better because the truth is he can't look much worse. 5 for 20. 35 yards, 4 interceptions. It was the most horrific performance that I've ever seen Peyton Manning put forth. And to be quite honest with you, Skip, everybody's bringing up the plantar fasciitis that he is suffering from. Our very own Adam Schefter revealed that to be the case. Folks can go ahead and use that as an excuse so much as they want to. I don't. And the reason that I don't is that no disrespect to any human being out there who is disabled. I mean, no disrespect towards them whatsoever. Peyton Manning, on his knees or in a wheelchair, could throw the football on most nights better than 5 for 20 for 35 yards. Okay? That injury alone is not the reason that Peyton Manning looked that awful. Peyton Manning, age, attrition, getting beat down, etc. He's not what he used to be. 9 touchdowns, 17 interceptions this year. He's not himself. It doesn't take away from his greatness. It doesn't take away from the level of greatness that he has displayed for us over the last 17 to 18 years. It doesn't negate the fact that he's a first ballot future Hall of Famer. It doesn't negate the fact that he's one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play, or that, as you call him, he's the greatest regular season quarterback to have ever played the game of football. None of that takes away anything from the greatness of Peyton Manning. It's just that Father Time has come knocking. And even though I still think that he has the ability, once this plantar fasciitis heals, to resurrect himself and get going and be more than formidable, and he has the potential to give us flashes of greatness because he has that much greatness in him, I think it's clear that this is it for him. This is the last run. I don't believe that we will see Peyton Manning back after this season. I think it's over.
I hear all the points you just made. I'm not sure I agree with you on this one. The problem that we're going to have a hard time debating is just how hurt he is. I'm not his doctor. I'm not a doctor. So we're shooting a little bit in the dark here. But I will tell you this. I'm going to give him a break for the plantar fascia because anyone who suffered from merely plantar fasciitis, just inflammation of the plantar fascia, for those who don't know, it runs underneath your foot.
Yep.
Once it gets inflamed, I've had it from running marathons. Any runner's had it, probably in some varying degree.
Right.
You can't walk. You can't get out of bed in the morning on it. And if it was frayed a few weeks back, they said it really got worse at Indy, then if it actually started to tear, man, that's a big problem for a 39-year-old who was already suffering. I remind you, Stephen A., he was on the injury report for a shoulder and for ribs. So his body is betraying him at age 39. It's Kobe-esque. It's what Kobe's battling with all these big injuries Kobe's had to fight through. His body won't stay healthy. Peyton's obviously playing a more violent game than Kobe, can't stay healthy. But again, I'll do whatever case scenario you want to make this, best or worse. It's possible that Peyton's done for the rest of this year, but does that mean he's done for next year? I don't know that. It sounds like he's been battling through all sorts of various degrees of injuries all year long. And again, if you've got plantar fasciitis alone, it would be hard to push off. It would be hard to get any velocity on your throws. And again, if Peyton Manning at 39 is just throwing only with his upper body and no legs, I can see where he'd lose a whole lot of velocity. So I'm going to give him a break on that score. Again, the year has been pretty miserable, but I keep reminding you, there have been about 3 fourth quarters when Peyton Manning's looked pretty much like Peyton Manning. I remember the game at Kansas City. You remember the night game. Yesterday against Kansas City at home, he did not look like Peyton Manning. It was abysmal, and I thank Gary Kubiak for saying, hey, it's on me. I should have stepped up. Clearly, he knew the doctor's internal reports. He should have just said no. I know you're Peyton Manning, but we can't risk you out there in this shape that you're in because you're borderline unplayably hurt right now.
Well,
so they let him try, and he got embarrassed.
Well, let me lean on your expertise, Skip, in terms of what you talked about with the plantar fascia, okay? Peyton Manning is completing less than 60% of his passes for the first time since 2008. Since 2008, he's completed a minimum of 66% of his passes. All right, so whatever you want to point to as it pertains to his plantar fascia, did he come into the season with it? I have no knowledge of that. If it's something that, from my understanding, it's something that has developed over the last few weeks. But this guy is completing less than 60% of his passes. He's got nearly double the amount of interceptions than he has in touchdowns. Don't get me started with his QBR or his overall quarterback rating, because right now it just isn't that impressive. He's got a QBR, Skip, of 45, if I remember correctly, and a completion percentage, quarterback rating rather, of 67. Now, Ronnie Hillman and C.J. Anderson being anemic from the running back position hasn't helped him.
They have.
John Elway, as great of a job as I think he's done, along with Gary Kubiak, they haven't helped them by having, just acquiring Vernon Davis, because you really had no one at the tight end spot prior to Vernon Davis arriving. And obviously that was forcing Peyton Manning to put a lot of more additional pressure on himself, because with no running game, a patchwork offensive line, and no tight end to throw the ball to between the numbers, you've got to throw the ball outside the numbers, which requires some degree of velocity on a consistent basis that's not going to allow defenders to take chances. They obviously felt that they could have. They were daring Peyton Manning to take chances. So they're noticing that attrition has kicked in, that he's not 100% healthy. What I mean when I say that I'm not going to give him a pass, in no way am I questioning the legitimacy of his injury. The Manning family is first class all the way. I don't question anything about them character-wise, integrity-wise, or anything like that. I'm simply saying that no matter how injured Peyton Manning is, I'm telling you right now, with one arm tied behind his back and 3 fingers, okay, a broken thumb, whatever you want to put. I'm just making up injuries here. I'm telling you, Peyton Manning can do better than 5 for 20 for 35 yards because he's Peyton Manning. So the fact that he had this bad of a day, I'm saying let's not just attribute it to the plantar fascia. I'm saying there's more going on here. There's the age of attrition. There's that birth certificate that keeps collecting dust. There's your body being worn down. There's the 4 neck surgeries from a few years ago. There's a multitude of things that have come into the equation that has led me to the conclusion that his time has arrived, that he will say goodbye, because I think Peyton Manning has too much pride to just hang around and be average. If he can't be great and can't be that leader you know him to be, I don't believe he's going to stick around and deal with it. Just like the more I watch Kobe right now, the more I'm convinced Kobe ain't coming back after this season. This is it.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, I hear what you're saying. Again, I told you, I prefaced my comments by saying it's hard to know how hurt he was yesterday, so we're shooting in the dark there. I'm going to guess he was way more hurt than you think he was.
That's fair.
I think it was so debilitating that he shouldn't have been out there, and it was a disaster, obviously. But I will tell you, he got that team to a 3-game lead even now in its division. And I thought at times he was pretty good this year. He's better than a lot of starting quarterbacks.
He still is.
So I thought he played well enough to still think in the back of his mind, if I'm healthy, I can still play this game. Now, what happens down the stretch right now? Could he get healthy in 2 games? Can they win a couple games or 1 game with Brock Osweiler? I have no idea. I will tell you this. Bottom line to this discussion, you had already predicted that Denver would take care of New England's unbeaten streak. Remember, at Denver in a couple of weeks.
Doesn't look good now.
I don't know. Maybe that's a break for Brady. Again, no Edelman, but now maybe no Peyton. So maybe it does look good for Tom Brady.
I'll tell you this, Brock Osweiler ain't beating New England. I promise you that.
No. I'm pretty sure that's true.
And I'll tell you this, a lot of people are picking up Brock Osweiler on their fantasy teams. Manning still one game shy of breaking his tie with Brett Favre of most wins by a starting quarterback in NFL history. Coming up, another Super Bowl MVP is struggling. Is Green Bay packing it in?